Hello, good morning. My name is Beate Lichtwart, and together with my colleague Melissa Ogwayu, I will be presenting today's workshop, Data in the Spotlight, Longitudinal Data. The roadmap for today's talk will look as follows. We will first have a little bit of a Mentimeter time. Then we will look into what is a UK data service. We will have a small introduction. Then we will focus on what longitudinal data are available via the UK Data Service. And next, where to find and how to access the data, resources and help. And we will finish with a hands-on practical. I apologize for my voice. It's a bit croaky. I have a cold, but I think it will hold hopefully during the workshop. Now, you don't need to scribble everything down. The slides and the recording of the event will be available afterwards. Here is the link to the website. And today's event is listed here, Data in the Spotlight, Longitudinal Data. And when you click on that later, you will find the slides and you will find the recording available to you. Now, we will start with Mentimeter time, and I will hand over to my colleague, Melissa.
Yeah, hope you can see my screen. So the first question we have is the first one to get an understanding of who's in the room with us today. So are you an undergrad student? Are you a postgraduate student, or are you a lecturer? 17, okay. Yeah, it seems we have more lecturers or researchers than postgraduate students. So I'll go to the next question. So where are you from? Which institution are you representing? Which city are you from? Which country are you from if it's not the UK? We tend to get a lot of people outside the country whenever we hold this webinar. Oh, Cambridge, Germany, Portugal, Iran, Pakistan, Scotland. Feel free to even mention the institution that you represent. Warwick, Singapore, York. Ghana. It seems most people are from the UK. Or Lapland University. Oh, that's nice. It's nice to know that we have a very diverse audience today. So I'll go to the next question. So we want to know how familiar you are with longitudinal data. Maybe yourself, you've never heard of it, or it's your first time working with it, or you're an expert with longitudinal data, but you want to know what we offer at the UK Data Service. Yeah, it seems most people have never used longitudinal data. Yeah, so I'm sure this webinar will be very informative for you. So yeah, oh, and we have people who are also familiar with longitudinal data. That's nice. And if you've just joined, feel free to go to menti.com and use the code that's on the screen so that you can join the poll. You can join the poll at any time. Okay. Then the next question will be, what do you associate with longitudinal data? So what comes to mind when you think of longitudinal data? Yeah, feel free to jot down anything that comes to mind. Time. I'd say the same thing for me, time. Time is something that's, yeah, data over time, over a period of time. Cohorts. Yes, the Birth Cohort Studies is a very popular longitudinal data set. Causality. Time series. I see why we would say that. Tracking individuals, yes. Stories of lives. Repeated measure. Life course analysis, yeah. And finally, we'd like to know what research topic you're interested in. Probably your research topic is what led you to have an interest in longitudinal data. So feel free to let us know what you're working on or what you're interested in. Return policy, supply chain inequality, health, education, care, social attitudes. Yeah, a lot of topics in the social science realm tend to involve longitudinal studies. We have health. Health seems to be very popular. Occupational health, emotional health, children's outcomes. Developmental psychology. Okay. Yeah, I don't think we're getting any more responses, so I'll end the presentation and I'll pass this on back to my colleague Beata, who will take us through the first part of the presentation. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I think that was really encouraging to see that we have an international audience, but also the research topics you are interested in. And I think that will be quite useful for you, what we have prepared for you. So let me give you a short introduction of the UK Data Service. What is the UK Data Service? It is a comprehensive resource funded by the ESRC, and it's a single point of access to a wide range of secondary social science data. In fact, it is actually the UK's largest collection of social, economic, and population research data. And the UK Data Service is not only curating and giving access to this wide range of data, but we also provide support, training, and guidance. The UK Data Service is a partnership between the UK Data Archive at the University of Essex, where my colleague Melissa and I are from, the Kathy Marsh Institute for Social Research at the University of Manchester, JISC UK, Edina from the University of Edinburgh, and the Department of Information Studies and Centre for Advanced Spatial Analysis at the University College London. Now, just to give you an idea of the scope of the data we offer more than 10,000 studies. In fact, at the moment, it is 10,205 studies that we offer in our data catalog. And the majority are safeguarded data, which means you can download them after an initial process of registration. So these are 8,214 safeguarded studies. Then we have 1,519 open access datasets, and then we have 265 controlled studies. These are available via our UKDS Secure Lab. It's a Trusted Research Environment, or short TRE. So who is the UK Data Service for? It is for academic researchers and students. It's for government analysts. It's for charities and foundations, business consultants, independent research centers, and think tanks. Our sources of data are varied. So we have one source of data being the National Statistical Authority Office for National Statistics. We have UK government departments, for example, the Department for Work and Pensions, the Department of Education, etc., etc. We have intergovernmental organizations, research institutes, but also individual researchers. Because when you are an ESRC-funded researcher, so if you win a grant, then part of the conditions of your contract are that you will submit your data 3 months after you finished your project to the UK Data Service for us to make it available for secondary research via our data catalog. So as I mentioned before, we have different access levels. And just to mention that within the safeguarded access, we have also the end user license version, special conditions and special license. And in controlled, we distinguish between UKDIS Secure Lab data access, which I'm so happy to say we make it available remotely. And then we also have for some other data sets, for example, our IDEN data sets, the safe room access option. Now, the types of data collections that we hold are survey microdata. So here we have the cross-sectional data, panel longitudinal data, which we focus on today, and international microdata. And then we have aggregate statistics, which are mainly international macrodata. We have qualitative mixed methods data. These include in-depth interview transcripts, diaries, anthropological field notes, answers to open-ended survey questions, audio-visual recordings, and images. And then we have census data. And here we have a range starting from aggregate data, overflow, and microdata to boundary data. So UK surveys are large-scale government-funded surveys. Longitudinal, we will hear much more about that in a minute, are major UK surveys. And I saw actually you also mentioned that in the Mentimeter exercise in the beginning, that basically tracking individuals over time. You mentioned all of that over their life course or maybe part of their life course. It depends on the nature of the study. Then these international macro and micro data we offer in the UK data service, qualitative and mixed methods data, census, business administrative data, and I'm very happy to say via our involvement in the International Data Access Network, IDEN, we make controlled access international microdata available from the IRB, the Institute for Employment Research, from Germany, CSD data from France, so controlled data from France, and GISIS data from Germany. If you want to know more about this collaboration between multiple research data centers from European countries, which is, by the way, also open to enlargement, and which has been formed to facilitate research use of secondary secure access data, then please visit those websites. What longitudinal data are available via the UK data service? Now, first of all, just a quick summary of longitudinal data. So longitudinal surveys involve repeated surveys of the same individuals at different points in time. The data we hold are from large samples. They are nationally representative. And all longitudinal data, that's in the nature of the beast, is they suffer from attrition. Because you can imagine over time, people are not willing anymore to respond. Sometimes they move and you can't track them down. So new respondents are added regularly to keep up the numbers and to address the issue of attrition. Longitudinal data allow researchers to analyze change at an individual level and also to look into causalities. And because you have all these beautiful histories like employment histories, health histories, partner histories, children's histories, etc., you can actually see how they are interlinked and how they basically predict later life outcomes depending on early childhood circumstances, for example, or certain employment histories depending on health histories, or the other way around, etc. So they are usually more complex to manage and analyze, these longitudinal data, but do not worry, I will also present you later with enough links for you to easily access help and at all different levels, starting from very beginner level to a very advanced level. So everything is available there and also online. So help is at hand. Now, let me give you some examples of longitudinal data that we make available via the UK data service. The first three are the, excuse me, are the birth cohorts from the Center for Longitudinal Studies in London. So that's the 1958 National Child Development Study, NCDS, the 1970 British Cohort Study, BCS 70, and the Millennium Cohort Study, MCS. You can see that between the second and the third, so between BCS 70 and MCS, there is quite a large gap. And to fill that nicely, CLS has actually adopted and incorporated next steps further down the list, but also in black. And it was formerly called Longitudinal Study of Young People in England. And this is a cohort of people born in 1989 and 90 and fits quite nicely in between those BCS 70 and MCS. We will then also look at the British Household Panel Survey, BHPS, and Understanding Society or UK Household Longitudinal Study. It's a bit confusing. It's two names for the same thing, and it doesn't matter which one you use. It's the same. So it's either UK HLS or Understanding Society, but it's the same. We will also look into the English Longitudinal Study of Aging, ELSA, and growing up in Scotland, which is also a very nice policy relevant study, longitudinal study. And we will also talk a little bit about CLOSER, the Cohort and Longitudinal Study Enhancement Resources Facility. So let me start with the British Birth Cohort Studies from the CLS. They all are designed to look at the impact of childhood conditions on education, later life health, and economic circumstances, and understanding children and families in the UK. So now the NCDS follows a cohort of approximately 17,000 born in a single week in 1958. And the data have been collected at birth and at the ages of 7, 11, 16, and you see all the different ages there. There was also actually a 7-Up TV series about the 50s, the age 50 sweep, and or at that time. And the latest one is actually collected when they were 62, and the next one to come will be in 2026 when they will be 68 years old. There was also an additional biomedical survey, and it involved 9,000 individuals at the age of 45. The 1970 British cohort study follows again a cohort of roughly 17,000 born in a single week in 1970. And the data are collected at similar ages. That is to basically enable the intergenerational comparison. And then again, the Millennium Cohort Study also designed similarly born around the millennium and then sweeps at different ages. So all of them focus on a wide range of social, economic, health, medical, and psychological issues. The NCDS has become a unique resource for investigating social mobility, and I have seen that at least one of you mentioned they are interested in social mobility issues. So that would be, for example, a very interesting study for you. And the impact of childhood conditions on later life. So some data collections in the series have a special focus. So there's a, if you wish, the main module, and then there are special focused modules, for example, on partnership history, employment history, social participation and identity, response and death, parent migration, behavioral studies, and essays. And that's not done in every single wave or sweep. The same for the British cohort study is a similar design and coverage to NCDS because that's a whole intention that it's comparable. And again, some data collections have a special focus, for example, education, partnership, history, employment. And for the Millennium Cohort Study, the special focus is, for example, on mothers who received fertility treatment or on physical activity. And there's also a teacher survey. Now, this slide is designed to illustrate how the cohort studies go with time. You can imagine that if you try to convince a 14-year-old these days with a paper and pen questionnaire to fill in, that you will not get many filled in questionnaires when you try to collect them. It's simply not attractive for them. So what is quite nice to see is that, for example, the MCS age 14 survey was the first large-scale population study in the world to incorporate objective measurements of physical activity using an accelerometer alongside self-reported time use for the same period into a social survey. So this device that you see at the bottom, this activity monitor, you would basically strap to your leg and walk around with it. And actually, that was quite an interesting device to the young generation, as was the app diary that was developed together with it. And this again, was the first large-scale study to make use of the new technology of a bespoke smartphone app to collect the data. So more newer developments have followed. I just wanted to highlight when this started and how the data collection changes over time to be more to be more accurate, but also to enable a good response rate by using modern technology. Now, the CLS studies, so far I have mentioned the core studies, the NCDS, BCS 70, Next Steps, and MCS, but there's also a next cohort study coming in 2026. And so basically that will be children born in 2026. It's called Generation New Era. The test for that is the early life cohort feasibility study run from 2021 until 24. And so that's the next one to come. It's actually quite nice to see that we have a new birth cohort study that will now follow. There are also several associate studies, for example, the COVID Social Mobility and Opportunity Study, which looks at youngsters who were in year 11 in 2020 and 21. This study is short called COSMO, so for the COVID Social Mobility and Opportunity Study, and you will hear more about that in a second. There's also the Growing Up in the 2020 study, and here it will be looked at young people in year 8, year 9, year 11, and year 12. So basically in secondary school. There's another one, Growing Up in Digital Europe, where it is looked at 8-year-olds and their main caregiver. And there's another one, Children of the 2020 study, focusing on children from 9 months to 5 years old. So basically before the primary school age. And in orange here, I have highlighted that actually this sort of primary school age is covered by another study, which is called 5 to 12. This is done by NatCen, not by CLS, but all three of them Growing Up in the 2020s, Children of the 2020 study, and the 5 to 12 study. They are commissioned and funded by the Department of Education, and it's a series of national studies about different stages of childhood and adolescence. So they cover quite a nice range of basically stages here. So 5 to 12, as a primary age. Before that, children of the 2020s, 9 months to 5 years, and then afterwards, Growing Up in the 2020s. There's also the COVID Social Mobility and Opportunity Study, which I said already, which is focusing on the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on educational inequality and social mobilities. Growing Up in Digital Europe is Europe's first comparative longitudinal study of children and young people's well-being. That's actually quite nice that it already harmonizes before it even starts, which makes it so much easier than doing it afterwards. Excuse me, please. So the aim of this study is to track children's well-being and psychosocial development in combination with key indicators of children's homes, neighborhoods, and schools using harmonized data collection across Europe. It also includes, as you can guess from Growing Up in a Digital Europe, questions on digital use, but also on activities, addiction, and enjoyment, basically all related to digital use or not. And the Cosmos study, here I would just like to basically whet your appetite by giving you some more details regarding the content of Wave 1 and Wave 2. So in Wave 1, it is looked at experiences of the pandemic, financial impacts in the home, disruption to schooling, access to home learning and school provision, attitudes to education, mental health and well-being, and GCSE assessment in 2021 and the crucial post-16 transition. And then in Wave 2, the activities since wave one, university applications, labor market and apprenticeship experiences, vocational training, and core topics that were also covered in wave one. So this study basically covers how the disruption to schooling during the pandemic has affected young people's educational attainment and well-being, as well as their longer-term education and career outcomes. What is also fascinating, I find, is the linkage. So this study has been designed for linkage to administrative data from the National Pupil Database, the longitudinal educational outcomes data set, as well as other sources. So for example, the participation in the National Tutoring Program, the Department for Work and Pensions, HMRC, Universities and Colleges Admission Service, UCAS, and HESA, as well as the Student Loans Company. This is fantastic. You can imagine what sort of rich data set comes together this way. So watch out for that. Now, when COVID happened, the COVID-19 pandemic happened, it was really impressive how quickly the longitudinal studies reacted. Within months, there were additional modules and surveys out there to capture what is going on in the country, to basically understand the economic, social, and health impacts of the crisis and the extent to which the pandemic widened or narrowed inequalities and the lifelong factors which shape vulnerability and resilience to its effects. There was also a very nice blog on how the UK's longitudinal studies are helping society navigate the COVID-19 pandemic. They really informed decision making also during that crucial time. It just highlights the importance of social science data for everyday's life and actually for the future by informing policymaking. Now, here are the COVID-19 surveys and the Understanding Society COVID-19 study mentioned, and there is also the link to that. Now, what I mean, just to basically finish with that, and then we move on. What is really interesting that after 3 waves have been completed in March 2021, study participants who had taken part in any of these 3 COVID-19 surveys were actually asked to provide a blood sample to be analyzed for COVID-19 antibodies even. I think this is really spot on, as is very, very impressive. Now, let's look at the Understanding Society data. The study is designed to capture the life in the UK in the 21st century, and it is the largest longitudinal household panel study of its kind. It provides really vital evidence on life changes and stability. And again, I will highlight later all the different linkages planned and done, and which enhance the data by so much. But also let's look at the scope first. So this one has 100,000 individuals in it in 40,000 British households, and is looking at the socioeconomic circumstances and attitudes of those. It started in 2009, and the first data were available in 2010. So far, 14 waves have been made available, and the 15th wave is due in December 2025 this year. So the Understanding Society replaces and incorporates the British Household Panel Survey, which ran from 1991 until 2009. And if you now just compare it, the British Household Panel Survey had 5,500 households. Now this one, Understanding Society, has 40,000 households coverage. It's really the largest of its kind. Now, it replaces and incorporates the BHPS, and it retains the latter's longevity whilst adding to the sample size and to the scope of the study. So the respondents of the BHPS have been incorporated from wave 2 going forward. And there will also be a slide about the harmonized data sets, which actually make a fantastic wealth of data available. I will come to that in a second. Now, The coverage in general includes current employment and earnings, employment status, parenting and childcare arrangements, family networks, benefit payments, political party identification, household finances, environmental behaviors, consents to administrative data, and linkage, as I already mentioned, to health and education data. Staying with the health aspect for a second or a minute, there was a nurse health assessment in wave 2 and 3. Adult participants received a follow-up health assessment visit from a registered nurse, and this nurse collected a range of biomedical measures from around 20,000 adults. They included blood pressure, weight, height, waist, body fat, grip strength, lung function, and blood samples. Now, this might be a little bit intimidating for social scientists to see all these health biomarkers included and how to analyze it because the expertise might not be there necessarily for social scientists. I'm saying that because I'm one myself. So there are webinars out there. For example, here's the one mentioned on the right-hand side, an introduction to survey data on biomarkers, but Understanding Society, housed at the Institute for Social and Economic Research, they have a fantastic website. And there is an arrow here to the relevant page on that website for the biomarkers, genetics, and epigenetics out of the list of topics that are listed on the left-hand side. And what is really beautiful is that you can, and you see that in the box highlighted in blue, you can see a full list of variables relating to health conditions that can be found in these different waves. But you also find information on genomics and proteomics for social scientists, and you find additional resources to educate yourself how what indicator is used for what. So basically, then how you can design your research. And there are some really easy to understand tables, for example, like the one on the left-hand side, the biomarkers available in Understanding Society and what their applications are. So what do you do with certain biomarkers? What do you understand from them? The data linkage usually covers three types of data linkage: geographical identifiers, administrative data linkage, so for example, with education, health, economic circumstances, and transport, and organizations, for example, the schools that children recently attended. I've also included here the URL, so you can easily go there and have another look. Actually on the data releases that have been done and that are planned. There's also a very nice overview. I think it's 9 or 10 pages long, very detailed what sort of subject is covered in which wave and very detailed. So which is a very nice way of getting an overview of what you find where. So coming back to the data linkage, there are linked data available, for example, linked to the English National Pupil Database and to Scottish education data. Regarding environment, there are linked data to DVLA records. Then there are linked auto-enrollment pension data are available, geographical linkages are available, and also linked credit history data are available. And then for 2025, the plan is for linked health data for Scotland and for linked annual energy consumption meter data. But please have a look, go to this link provided here and see for more details. These are just highlights. Now, I mentioned that you find already a harmonized version of BHPS and Understanding Society available to you. That is, for example, study number 66114. And you find that in the data catalog. And Melissa will show you in a while how to use the data catalog and how to search there. For example, amongst other things. So instead of you doing it yourself and now basically merging the 18 waves of the BHPS and the so far available 14 waves of Understanding Society, you already find it available. Obviously, it's not one data set because it's a whole wealth of data sets, but they are already harmonized. And this is such a huge asset. I can only recommend to look into it. We also have the secure access version. As you can imagine, certain linked data sets will be too detailed and at risk of disclosure. Hence, they are in the secure access section. So again, COVID-19 study, but I will move on to again highlight that there is training not only available at the UK Data Service, but also at Understanding Society web pages. And I have provided here the one on the top box, the URL for that. But really, I can only emphasize on this. There is introductory training when you start from scratch. There's intermediate training and there's very advanced training. It's in person or it's online. And there's also a library of training videos available. And last but not least, which is also very important, all the courses are free of charge. Now, to sum it up, the UK Data Service has 81 studies available for Understanding Society, 81. This is a link for the overview for basically a whole list of all the available data sets for Understanding Society via the UK Data Service. And what is also very beautiful is that Understanding Society is providing an international comparison page where you can see with which international household panel studies is Understanding Society comparable in the world of basically a worldwide family of household panel studies. Have a look at that. It's really very interesting. Now, let's move on to the English longitudinal study of aging. This one collects data from a representative sample of approximately 10,000 people of the population aged 50 plus in England on a range of indicators. For example, health, economic circumstances, well-being, and social participation. So far, 11 waves have been collected until 2024 and have been made available. ELSA is a longitudinal survey of aging, as it says, and quality of life among older people that explores the dynamic relationships between health and functioning, social networks and participation, and economic position as people plan for, move into, and progress beyond retirement. Now, why is that so interesting? Well, 1 in 3 people in England are now over 50, which means it's really important to understand what life is like for England's aging population. And ELSA helps the government plan healthcare services and pension systems to best meet the needs of this growing population. So, like every other study that I've introduced so far, all these longitudinal studies are actually informing policy making. That's a very important feature of them because they have this wealth of information and they can actually look into causalities and that way really inform decision making. Okay, so the main objectives of ELSA are to construct waves of accessible and well-documented panel data, provide these data in a convenient and timely fashion to the scientific and policy research community, describe health trajectories, disability and health life expectancy in a representative sample of English population aged 50 and over, examine the relationship between economic position and health, investigate the determinants of economic position in older age, describe the timing of retirement and post-retirement labor market activity, also very important, and understand the relationships between social support, household structure, and the transfer of assets. I have mentioned in the beginning that we have mixed method studies. So our longitudinal studies are increasingly also having qualitative bits to them. And so does ELSA, actually also the longitudinal studies I've mentioned before, even though I didn't mention the quali bit. Now, let me just illustrate this one, for example. A set of 558 transcripts of short essays has been collected from respondents to the Wave 3 life history interview, and they are provided if you want to access them in RTF format in a separate download zip file. And the essays were written in response to section 3 of this life history self-completion questionnaire, which basically task the respondents with the following. Thinking back over your life, with its wide variety of enjoyable as well as difficult experiences, please write about 3 aspects of your life that have been especially important to you and how they affected you. And that is then actually quite interesting. In other cohort studies, you have, for example, the task, imagine you are 50. How do you think your life has unfolded by then? Where will you be in life, etc., etc.? And then actually, once they get there, they will be again asked, and then you can see how the expectation has panned out and how lives have unfolded after that first expectation and what actually came out. Now, also, ELSA had a COVID-19 study, and topics included mental health, financial security, employment and work, financial situation, volunteering, physical health, connection, isolation, and technological inclusion. Very important bit for this aging population. Now, again, very beautiful. ELSA is, together with other international studies, harmonized in a project called Gateway to Global Aging. And there is a webinar about that if you want to listen to it. And there is a website. Both URLs are provided here. So if you want to have a look, that's fantastic. So you already find harmonized data regarding aging internationally, where our ELSA data fit in. Now, closer. Areas of work of closer are data discoverability, policy and dialogue, training and capacity building, and data innovations. Quite recently, they have actually enhanced the closer discovery by a lot. If you want to look at that, it's really a good source to see, for example, what variables are in different longitudinal studies. So you find much easier which ones would be comparable if you wanted to. But coming back to the UK Data Service, what is fantastic is their work on harmonizing data when it comes, for example, to height, weight, and BMI in longitudinal cohort studies. So we have different work packages that they carried out. Another one is harmonized socioeconomic measures in 4 longitudinal cohort studies, or harmonized childhood environment and adult well-being measures in 3 longitudinal cohort studies. And these results of these work packages are available as harmonized data sets via the UK Data Service, a very important source. Please have a look. Now let's talk about growing up in Scotland, a fantastic longitudinal study. They follow several cohorts. So the child cohort 22-3 and birth cohorts for 2004-5 and 10-11 of Scottish children from the early years through childhood and beyond. They look at health, neighborhood, development, education, leisure, friendships. And there's also consent thought from the parents for linkages with health and education authorities' data, administrative data. So while the main aim of the study is to provide information to support policymaking, it's also intended to be a broader resource that can be drawn on by academics, voluntary sector organizations, and other interested parties. And we will see that again, how it actually does when we look at the impact that the GUS has. Now, the fields of work are cognitive, social, emotional, and behavioral development, physical and mental health and well-being, childcare, education and employment, home parenting, family, community and social networks, and involvement in offending and risky behavior. Here you can see an illustration of the modular approach in the bigger box. So you can see, for example, in some sweeps, there is an interview with a partner and there are health records. In others, you have added the teacher interview or the partner interview again, or when they get older, the child interview. Sometimes there are cognitive assessments, etc., etc. So at the moment, in 2025, we are at the age of 19 or 20. So that is the latest. If you want to have a look at what ages it was collected, please follow the URLs that I had provided on this slide here. Now, I would like to spend a little bit of time here regarding the impact of the Growing Up in Scotland study. I find it absolutely impressive, I must say. So, and it's nicely summed up in that slide. So, which is actually a screenshot from the Growing Up in Scotland web page, one of the web pages. So let me just highlight that research findings from GOOS have contributed to the development of Scottish government policies and strategies, have been referenced by politicians in parliamentary debates, been used by various organizations giving evidence to Scottish Parliament committees, been used by local authorities to inform strategic development, and been used by voluntary sector organizations to inform policy development. In practice, they have been used in discussions with nursery staff and with parents, used to inform the targeting of support, used in funding applications, used as national benchmark against which to compare local outcomes, used as an evidence base for local improvement work, and even in trainings they have been used. So, for example, used extensively by professionals undertaking ZBA in childhood practice, etc., etc. Or as a resource for teaching quantitative methods, maybe also qualitative. I don't know whether there were qualitative bits, but mainly quantitative. It's fantastic. And it's in a nutshell what these longitudinal studies can actually do for society and for bettering the society. Here, one slide with a lot of little snippets regarding the impact of understanding society, just highlighting some headlines like think tank says poverty in the UK is worsening, unhappiness on the rise for young people. Understanding society data shows impact of financial security on mental health, just to mention a few. The cohort studies of the CLS that I had mentioned in the beginning, here you will look at this slide and think, I see one that is actually dating back to 2014. Yeah, but the interesting thing is that in 2014, the worry was that poor reading could cost the UK 32 billion in growth by 2025. And depending, and because there was this worry, there was a campaign initiated to basically address this issue. And as a result, there was also, for example, the Read On, Get On campaign to help children reading well in England by the age of 11. That was launched in 2014 by a coalition of charities and education organizations committed to improving reading levels in the UK. And that was very, very important. And it has a measurable effect. I mean, obviously, it was measured then afterwards. And on the right-hand side corner, I have put a little snippet 10 years on, where the heading is Improving the Nation's Numeracy, What Can We Learn from the British Cohorts? So what can cohort evidence tell us about the predictive power of early math skills and what policymakers can do to boost the nation's numeracy? So again, the predictive power of early math skills you can only analyze when you have this longitudinal data, because you can see what the early math skills were and how life then unfolded. I mean, obviously, not only depending on math skills, but you can actually develop some causalities and check some causalities and see what the outcomes are. Um, yeah. This is just fantastic. Another snippet here about informing policy based on the Millennium Cohort Study, children's mental illness and well-being at the age of 11. And here quite nicely these infographics on the right-hand side, for example, overlapping the factors associated with mental illness and the factors associated with well-being. And what you basically find in the middle, what are the decisive ones? So engaged with school, argues with parents, bullied by siblings, problems getting along with peers, single parent family, high income family, or not. Very, very topical, very relevant, and absolutely crucial for the society of tomorrow. And one that I really like, the vocabulary aged 40 depends on how much you read as a teenager, that we should tell all of our teenagers. Now, again, considerations for policymaking, just the last one, for example, predictors of carrying out or using a weapon at age of 17, very topical again. And here you can see all the different predictors. Let's move on to our next section that will be covered by my colleague Melissa. where to find and how to access data, resources, and help.
Thank you, Beata. So I hope you can see my screen. So Beata has taken us through a very detailed explanation of the longitudinal of different longitudinal data sets that we have. So I will start by demonstrating to you how you can find and access these various data sets. So allow me to just switch to my browser so that I can give you a live demonstration. Yeah. Okay, I hope you can now see my browser. So as you can see, I'm on the landing page of our website, and to access these different longitudinal data sets, you'll need to go to you need to click on the link that says Explore Our Data Catalog. And then when you click on Search Data, you will be able to find this page that shows you how you can search various data sets in our data catalog. You can search using a keyword or any word that relates to the data set that you're interested in. But to ensure that you are specifically looking at a longitudinal data set, it would be important for you to come here to the data type tab and click on the cohort and longitudinal studies. And as you can see, we have 1010 studies within our catalog that fall into this classification. So I'll take you back to the presentation so that I can continue. Yes, and you can see from this slide, which we will share after the presentation, where you can find the filter for the longitudinal studies. Yeah, and so who can access this data set? All registered users of the UK Data Service can access these data sets, and I won't go in depth into the data access conditions and access levels as Beata has already mentioned them, but the way you access this data will depend on the different access conditions. So if you're a user from the UK and you're part of a higher education institution, then you will obviously be able to open an account with UKDS and access our data sets, whether it's an open license data set or a safeguarded data set. And an open license data set doesn't require you to have an account. You can just download the data sets when you search for it on our website. Whereas a control data set is accessible to accredited researchers and not just anyone who is from a higher education institution. Yes, and I've already talked about the different access conditions, and it's important for you to know that the data sets that we have is applied in a variety of formats. It can come in SPSS or Stata or tabulated data or in tabulated form. And we also have word processed documents and PDF documents, and we also provide we also have a metadata catalog for each of our data sets, so you can understand the different variables and their characteristics, which are described in the data dictionaries of each data set. And so how will you be able to access data? So I'll take you through the various steps. And the first step is you need to register with us via UK Federation using your university, and with that you will be able to get access to our catalog, and or alternatively you can contact us so that we can set up a username and password for you. And then also you need to agree to our end user license. And then afterwards, you need to select your desired data from the data catalog by clicking on the download or order button, which you will find once you've selected the data set that you would like to access. And then you also need to specify a project for which the data is to be used. So you can create a project within our website and describe what the project is about. And after you've done that, you can attach the data set to that project and you'll be able to access it. And then you can download the data to your local machine, or you can just place an order for the data and complete all the relevant forms. And this will all depend on the access condition of the data set that you would like. Yeah, because if it's a controlled data set, then you won't be able to download it directly to your machine. Yeah, so this page just illustrates how you can download and order the data, which I've already explained in the previous slide. So when you go to this link over here that's on the slide, we have instructions on how to download and order data. And we also have an online inquiry form in case you have trouble finding the appropriate data set. Feel free to reach out to us by filling out this form, and we will get in touch with you. Yeah, so I'd like to highlight the end user license. And it's important to note that every user is required to agree to an end user license outlining the terms and conditions of use of the data. Without doing this, you won't be able to access the data. So it's important for you not to share data with anyone who is not authorized to access them, not to use the data for commercial purposes, except in the case that you've asked for permission to do so, and not to try to use the data to identify individuals, households, or organizations. And it's very important for you to cite data correctly and to inform the UK Data Archive and UK Data Service of any publications. And we make this easier for you as we provide the citation of the data set whenever you download or access the data set from our website. And it's also important for you not to disclose your login details to anyone else, and agreeing to meet any charges that would be incurred in case you decide to use the data set for commercial purposes. Yeah. And when it comes to secure data access or control data set, as I've mentioned before, this is a data set that is not downloaded on your computer. But you can access it remotely from an organizational desktop, or you can come to the UK Data Archive and access the data set from our safe room, or from the safe pod, or from an IDAN member safe room. And access requires accreditation as an approved researcher, and you'll need to complete safe researcher training in order to achieve this. And also, you need to agree to the services user agreement and breaches penalties policy. And then also, applications are screened by the UK Data Archive, and the individual or institution having ownership of the data or their designated authority. And access is only granted to those researchers who are requiring data for statistical research purposes and can justify their need for the data. So usually you will need to fill out a research proposal and explain to us why you need this data set for your work. And then also access, it's worth mentioning that access is via a web-based interface that uses secure encrypted Citrix virtual private network technology. And once you have access to this data and you've managed to work on it, and you want to create an output for your research, we allow for outputs, but they are subjected to statistical disclosure control. So once you've reached that stage, you'll reach out to a member of our team, and they will assist you through this process. Yes, and the next part of this presentation will involve how you can explore data online. You do via a tool that we have called Nesta. And when using Nesta, you don't necessarily need to download this data set. You just need to go to the site and access this data. So I'll first show you how it looks via the slides before I take you through the online demo. So what is Nesta? So Nesta allows you to do online analysis, and it's an online data browsing and analysis system, and it allows users to search for, locate, browse, and analyze, and download a wide variety of data sets within their web browser. And we provide this. And the data sets that are provided under Nest are usually our most popular data series, and registration is required for analysis such as cross tabulations and regressions. And for you to access this tool, you first have to go to the UK Data Service website and then go to Learning Hub and Software and Tools, and you will see this box over here, written Nesta. And when you click on Access Nesta, you'll be able to access it. And we also have video tutorials on how to be able to use the tool. So I'll just switch over to my browser so that you can see how it actually works. Yeah, so I hope you can now see my browser. So Nesta works best with Firefox. I hope you have that browser with you. In case in case you don't have it, I think it might work with different browsers, but it works best with Firefox. So for instance, these are the data sets this is what you will see when you access the catalog. And I will start by selecting the teaching data set. And I'll select one of the data sets that we have here, such as the closer data set, which Beata talked about, which has the National Child Development Study. And we have the metadata section here that gives us the study description and the data file description. And then also we have the variable description. So you'll need to go to variable description in order to be able to explore the different data set, the different variables using this tool. And then you'll need to click on the tabulation tab before you select any of these variables. So I've selected the personal and family background category. And here we have the sex of the NCDS cohort member, and I'll add it to the row. As I mentioned before, you need to log in. So I've logged in and this is how it looks. So you can see the frequency of the different sexes of the respondents. And then also I'll select another variable such as voting behavior and preferences. So over here, I'll add this variable to the column. So you can see the number of respondents of different sexes and how and whether or not they voted in the 1979 general election. And over here, you can see these small icons that will allow you to create different visualizations of the tabulations that you've created. So over here, you can see there's a bar chart, so you can create different charts. Yeah, so you can create these visualizations without necessarily downloading the data set. And there's some icons over here that some of them aren't working at the moment because of the type of variable that I've chosen. So for instance, with this line, this is for time variable data. So if I had a time variable, we would be able to create a time series chart. And then also with this one, I think this is for the map. So if I had a location variable, I'd be able to create a map. And this button allows you to refresh so that you can start over and click and select other variables in case you want to. And over here we have the download button. So you can download you can download the subset of data, or you can also download the data set in different formats. And you can also download the visualization that you were able to create. Yeah, so I'll just go back to the slides. Yeah, so over here we have this example of parenting skills, which is from the Millennium Cohort Study. So this chart was created using the main person sex variable, and the main person who's filling out the survey fills about parenting skills. And this chart, as you can see from this chart, we have not very good at being a parent as the most selected variable among males. And for females, you have a tie between these two variables, which is an average parent and the not very good at being a parent variables. Yeah. And then over here, as I mentioned, for you to be able to get this kind of chart, you need to select a time series variable. And yeah, from this example, you can see that you can see how that was created. Yeah, because this variable has the service year, financial year from 1988 onwards, and the highest qualification degree or higher. So you can see that over time, the higher qualifications have been increasing. More people are getting degrees with time. Yeah. So I've already demonstrated to you how Nesta works, and the next um, portion of the presentation will be on resources and help. And this is the resources that we have on the website and how you can reach out to us in case you need any help. So I will show you how the pages of the Learning Hub and Data Skills module look, the teaching data sets, the impact blogs, and case studies that we have, and the help pages. And it's also important to note that we also have video tutorials and webinars for various tools that we use. So be on the lookout for any webinar that you may want to attend. In case you miss any of the webinars, we do record them and you can find them on YouTube. We also do provide user guides for various tools and data sets. Most of our data sets have a user guide, so it's worth consulting them before you even reach out for help. And then also we have our help desk for individual user support. So feel free to email us in case you need help. And we do provide guidance and advice on managing and sharing data. So feel free to reach out to us in case you need that. And then, so this next page showcases how the Learning Hub looks. So the Learning Hub allows you to enhance your data skills, and also you can be able to use the tools that we have in the Learning Hub to teach your students on how to explore data sets and how to grasp different techniques in data analysis. So we have so from this screenshot, you can't see everything that we do provide, but so this list is a detailed list of what we have on the Learning Hub. So we have data skills modules, we have computational social science material, we have materials on teaching with real data, we have materials on various software and tools such as Rs, data, whatever tools you would like to use. We have materials on research, data management, and we have information on training events such as this one. And we also have data skills training webinars, and we also do have a podcast that you can access via the Learning Hub. Yeah, so since this webinar is specifically on longitudinal data skills, we also have a longitudinal data skills module which you can access from our Learning Hub. And it's an introduction to longitudinal data for those who have no experience with data. As we saw from the Mentimeter, there are those who are new to longitudinal data, so it might be worth taking part in this module. So this is basically the content of what we have in the module. You get an introduction to what longitudinal data is, and you can even see the different use cases of longitudinal data. Yeah. And then when it comes to teaching with real data, this is how the page looks like. So we have information on how you can use real research data to teach your students, and we call these teaching data sets. So an example of a teaching data set is the Understanding Society COVID-19 teaching data set, where we have various variables revolving around COVID-19, and it might be worth lecturers and researchers exploring these data sets with their students so that they can get a hands-on experience with real data. And we also have case studies. So case studies are impactful research that used data sets that we provide. So it might be worth exploring this, especially if you need some inspiration on what to or work with, and you might decide to access one of our data set in order to get a study to get a study going. And yeah, it's a very, very interesting page. Many of the case studies that we have are quite interesting, such as the Gender Inequality Index case study, which created a gender inequality index that is specifically catered for the UK using the data sets that we have. That's a case study worth looking at. And yeah, we have several of them. And then we also have an impact blog that I've not displayed on this slide, but that is also worth exploring, as it shows how research has impact and how how the studies that we provide have been able to facilitate that impact. Yes, and finally we have our help desk page. So over here we have different sections where you can need help. If you need help in registration, in accessing Secure Lab, if you're a new user and you need advice, if you need information on how to get data and access information, if you need information on the different types of data. So if you need help in longitudinal data, for instance, you will need to select the different types of data and you will see this come up, the longitudinal data and studies page. So you can get information on different longitudinal studies that we have. And I think it's worth noting that a lot of this information might not be in depth. So it's worth contacting our help desk if this information hasn't, if you're still not satisfied from the information that is here. Yeah, because researchers tend to have varying queries, and sometimes we can't really sum up all of your queries on one web page. Yeah. So are there any questions before we move on to the hands-on practical? Yeah, so I'll just, I saw some questions coming in through the Q&A box.
I have already answered them.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to just keep sharing your slides and we don't need to swap?
Okay, that's
back?
fine. Yeah. Yeah, okay. So if we don't have any other questions, I think we can proceed to the practical segment of the presentation. Yeah, so the first task will involve searching for variables using will involve using the data catalog, and it's a search task. So the first thing you would need to do is to type longitudinal into the data catalog search data bar. And we'd like to know what is the number of studies and series that come up as a result.
I would
And
suggest
then
that
also,
basically you can work through these 4 tasks
yeah.
as fast as you can. And basically, we would leave now this slide on, and then we would like you to please indicate to us when you have finished, so we can present you with the results, so you can check whether you are right in what you have found. So we have actually 3 tasks. So if we can ask you to just quickly go through these tasks, it's very easy tasks based on what Melissa has demonstrated when she introduced how to use the data catalog and how to search for certain studies. So if you could please do that now and then type in your questions. You can also actually use the chat for that one now for just this task bit. And if you have other non-related to the search questions, then please type it in the Q&A section.
Yeah, thank you, Beata.
Thank you. So the quicker you are with that task, faster we actually get to the really interesting task, which is basically for you to have a hands-on with Nesta. And what Melissa has already nicely demonstrated, how to use and how to get quick first ideas of the data to basically do that yourself. So that will be another task once we have completed this one. I think we will allow maybe 3 minutes for that.
Yeah.
Haha, the first results are coming in. Fantastic. So now it's
Yeah.
just 3 and 4 to do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 6 for control.
Mm-hmm. So now question number 4 remains open.
Yeah.
And we are in minute 3 of the task. Can you keep to the time? What is the study name and number? Haha, excellent. Yes, I think we can now go to the next slide.
Yes. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
the only missing answer here was that it's a 19 data series. So because there is a difference between studies and series, but fantastic. Yes, you got all the right results. Well done. So
Yeah.
let's move on to task number, not number, but task B. Find the data citation. Really important because you can't use anything without citing the data. And you just need to look into the details tab. And since you're already at that British Cohort Study link and page, that should be rather quick. There's a data citation file that you can actually access. So basically, it's again a copy and paste exercise once you found it. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Nick
And even
has
the
shared
DOI,
those.
the digital object identifier. Great.
Yes.
Fantastic. So, Melissa, then you can actually talk the group through the last task.
Yes. So the last task is involving Nesta. It's the online analysis task. So for this, you need to log in or register with the UKDS service. If you've not, that's if you've not registered. And do any of you have access to Firefox? I believe it works best with Firefox. So it would be worth exploring it. Yeah, thank you, Beata, for sharing the link.
But I need to share it with everyone.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Beata, have you used Firefox on a, not Firefox, Nesta on a different browser apart from
Yeah, but
Firefox?
it's actually temperamental. So you can try it.
Yeah.
So don't be put off, try it. But if it doesn't work, it's not you.
Okay.
So basically, yes, you use your university login.
Yeah.
That would work via Shibboleth. We are fully aware that takes some time, but you have 7 minutes left.
Yeah, yeah.
It's basically replicating the very nice illustration that Melissa gave earlier, how to use Nesta
Mm.
to get some first insights into some teaching data sets or other data sets. On the slides, you also find a link to more Nesta-related information
Yeah.
and also short videos
Yeah.
explaining again how it works.
Yeah. So, yeah. So don't worry if this if you still feel unfamiliar with it after this presentation, you can still learn from those resources.
Yeah, that is normal. Keep going, Eleni.
Oh,
Well, actually, you can't do it now, but you can ask for credentials. So basically, you
yes.
can still ask for registering with the UK Data Service, but you basically then will need to ask for the credentials and they will be given to you. So
Yeah.
if you can't do that online, if you're stuck there, I will just provide you with an email address. And if you have any difficulties, just email and they can assist you to get your credentials. So you will still be able to access the data. But yeah, you will now not be able to do the task. In that case, if you have any questions, please ask now. And otherwise, please be so kind to complete the feedback survey. Um, and yeah, that would be our last task. So there is no other task to come. If you want to contact us regarding the content of today's presentation and you have more questions, you can actually also email support@ukdataservice.ac.uk.
Yeah, so I've shared the results of the Nesta task. So this is
Fantastic.
what to expect. But if you're still trying to access it, the slides will be available after the presentation, so you can come back and see whether you did the right thing. Yeah, so this is how it looks. So the employed is 45.8, in education is 1.3, retired is 33.1. Yeah, just make sure you click on the tabulation tab. Yeah.
Because it's so frustrating when you're just about getting the results and then everything ends. It's unsatisfying. So let's just
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's now past. We need to keep to the timing and wish you a nice rest of today. Thank you very much for attending. Please complete the feedback forms. Let us know if there's anything else that you would like to see covered in our longitudinal workshop. We run this yearly. And I'm glad if it was helpful to you. If you need something else, let us know as much as letting us know if it was helpful, so we can actually adapt our content according to your needs. And thank you very much.